わさびアニメすごいですね。
And we're live, supposedly. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the very first attempt at our podcast for Convention Nerds.
We'll see how well it works. Yes, number one.
We'll get right into things. Watch this with the first thing we say ever on this show. Ken, my co-host, and I have a huge pet peeve with events. And our huge pet peeve is when conventions launch and the first thing they do is call themselves the first annual something, something, something. There is no such thing.
It is the inaugural.
Right. The inaugural.
Inaugural.
But it is not.
Inaugural. Soft A.
But not first annual, because you can't be a first annual if it's the first time out. But this is our first ever Convention Nerds podcast. Just a little background to start with. My name is Tom Croom. My first Star Trek convention was in 1989. Yes, I have to keep notes on when I started going to conventions because I'm that old now. But I went to my first Star Trek convention in 1989. Then I met a really pretty girl who liked anime in the late 90s. So I started going to anime conventions and went to a show called J-Con, which was the Japanese Animation Convention in Orlando, Florida. And that's where I met Ken. And by bombing one of his Transformers panels with truth, we started keeping in touch after that. I went on after that to create an anime club back when anime clubs still existed called Wasabi Anime. And the goal was to try to unite all the clubs in the state of Florida, because back then it was the Wild West and civil wars were breaking out. And since then, Wasabi Anime became Green Mustard Entertainment. And about 5 or so years ago, I had to quit my job in order to work full-time, going to conventions, standing on stage, and talking about giant robots and Japanese schoolgirls. So that's kind of me. So now I'll toss this over to Ken.
So I'm Ken Nabbe. Joey Snackpants Esquire is what I went for it for a number of years. But since this is an actual professional show, we'll stick with real names. And like Tom had mentioned, been doing conventions for quite a while. My first convention was Orlando Con 84. That was up in Winter Park, Florida. And I bought a copy of Teen Titans, George Perez run #1. And I thought that was the best thing ever when I bought it. And then I started getting into anime conventions after I spent a little bit of time working at Disney. And then broke up with my girlfriend and tried to figure out what I was going to do. And the JCO was still running on the University of Central Florida campus, but they had a division on the west side of Orlando, JCO West, and started with that group where all we did was watch Robotech and Star Blazers. And in 1997, went to my first anime convention, Anime Week in Atlanta. And we went in 97 and 98. And then in 99, we went, hey, we can do this too. And we founded J-Con, September of 2000. We expected about 200 people. After our third run to the Kinkos to reprint con guides, we were about 525 people. And we ran that for for 10 years, 2000 to 2009. And then I did Wasabi Anime of Florida with Tom. And then now we do convention stuff.
Yes.
We go to other places, do convention stuff.
Yes. And I want to say my favorite factoid about J-Con for this show, at least, is well before the Avengers did it. What was the name that we came up for the very last J-Con?
Oh, Endgame.
That's right.
It was we're going to go 10 years.
Yep. And we knew it was the last one. So we called it Endgame. And we still have pending legal against the Disney Corporation for stealing our event name. So.
Yeah, we named all the conventions. There was J-Con in the year. And then the final year it was J-Con X Endgame. Because it was the 10th year. It was great.
But just to lay the groundwork. So speaking when we started Wasabi Anime and everything else, one of the things I wound up working on was something called Project Anime, which was a annual conference that was designed with Anime Expo, the SPJA in Los Angeles, to start conversations with convention runners and treat this very niche industry as an industry. And it was great being a part of that. But immediately after doing that, I started trying to think of other ways to do so. So in 2013, Ken and I came up with doing a conversational podcast called Convention Nerds. And back then it wasn't like video. It was like, oh, we're just going to record it and it'll be fun. But it just never came to fruition. So this is literally a broadcast 7 years in the making in order to come. And the goal is every episode, which we do Tuesday nights, we want to talk to somebody heavily involved with a convention and learn not only more about their convention, but as we learn doing so many shows, I get to do, very lucky. I know that at least 10 shows a year in 8 to 10 different states and provinces. And if there's something I've gotten to see in doing so, it's that you can think the whole world of conventions, but when you see it from the perspective of other states, other provinces, and other organizations, we all have our own version of that world, and we can all learn from each other by talking about it, which kind of segues well into our guest tonight. Hilton, you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your show?
Yes, Hilton George from Blerdcon, the derivative of 2 words or 3 words, Black Nerd Convention. It's a comparatively new term for what definitionally, if that's a word, is as old as nerddom, technically. And it was a word that came out of one of everybody's favorite show, Scrubs. And everyone's favorite character in that show, Turk, came up with this idea, with this word, because it's a scene where he's trying to operate this brand new high-tech camera, which when you see the slide that I use in my PowerPoint, it's not high-tech now, but then it was kind of like complicated. And he's got like everyone waiting to take this picture, and he comes around, he's like, I can do this. And like, what makes you think you can do it? And he's like, well, my cousin just so happens to be the world's biggest Blerd. And then like all the other cast members who were white pause. They're like, what? And he does that dramatic comedy pause and he goes, a black nerd. And so that's the first time the word Blerd kind of made its way into the lexicon, and it just kind of like made its way out, and people started self-identifying with the term. And as a cosplayer and a long time, anime fan, I was getting nostalgic. You were talking about the old Harmony Gold days of Star Blazers and Robotech. Was my intro before he was even called animation. It was called Japanimation. Where we just like, you kind of had to get what you get. There was no shows, there was no Adult Swim, there was no Toonami.
Back when we had to walk uphill both ways in the snow to the anime shop to get VHS.
There it is, and fight off that grizzly bear with the spiral notebook, the whole 9. We old days. And so coming up in the late, the later 2000s, coming back to conventions after my run, as a younger person who was more into his nerddom, I took a nerd break when I went into the Army, and then I got cool in college, and I thought it was a phase. And I came back, and I started noticing how diverse the con crowds were. I saw people from every background and every stripe, every orientation, every sexuality, every race, every shade, regional. You go to some of these bigger cons in the metro areas, and you just see so much diversity in the crowds. And I was wondering, like, how does myself as a Black nerd find myself on the stage, on the dais, on the guest list, the subject matter in the conventions, that they're discussing, how do I, find something that's right for me? Now, my motto has always been, be the change that you want to see. I don't sit around and go like, boy, I wish cons would do this. So I, started submitting panels. I started networking with con runners, and I came up with this idea to make a convention that would highlight and celebrate, not just the Black nerd, culture, but also the intersectional, which was LGBTQ, people with disabilities, veterans, international Blerds. Everyone is not just one or two things. So we wanted to kind of figure out, how do we make this well-rounded, exciting experience? And as Tom will know, because he's been with me for a while, kind of watching from the wings, helping out in a lot of ways. I appreciate it. you go into these things with no sense of self-preservation whatsoever. You just, and I walked in blind, and the first place I walked technically was Project Anime. And I stood up in that crowd, and when everyone did their intro, and said, "Hey, my name is Hilton George, and I run a con that hasn't happened yet, and I sure would like somebody to help me out." And it gave me my intro and helped me avoid a lot of potholes in planning the convention, recruiting a team, setting up the structure to make it all work. And we're coming up on what is technically our year 5 here in DC, but will be the actual 4th iteration because we all had to skip for coronavirus at the Hyatt Crystal City in Arlington, Virginia.
Oh yeah, no, we made our annual joke earlier in this broadcast, and annual as a term for pop culture events is pretty much off the table at this point, except for that small group that squeezed in the beginning of the year. So
that's us.
But okay, so it's Blerdcon.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So, Hilton, are you the founder? Are you the president? What's your official role, or what have you evolved into?
Well, definitely co-founder. I came up with the idea, created the convention on paper, and I went to a friend of mine I went to college with, Hassan Parrish. He had his JD, went to law school, was business minded. And I hit him up and I said, "Hey man, I got this idea, and I want to pitch it to you. You tell me what you think. I need some help, on the business side, getting everything together." And I did this whole write-up. I've known him 20 years, but
whoa, did you do an actual real business plan?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh geez.
Oh yeah.
That's like what you're really supposed to do.
No, I wanted to make sure he knew how serious I was, and not like some harebrained, Sanford and Son get rich quick scheme, And so I wrote it all up, because he wasn't really active in the nerd space. So you gotta, when you're going for sponsors, or if you're working with the city, or you're working with
right.
You got to say, this is a convention, this is what nerds do, this is what they look, and they're just like, what is that? So I pitched the whole thing, and I said, I want to do it in a year and a half. We went a year and a half out from the con day one, and we just spent the first 8 months just getting incorporated, getting the copyrights and getting the
you did it the right
names
way.
and all that sort of stuff. I didn't put out a flyer.
Let me cut in real quick. Hilton, just for the record, so Ken is laughing a lot, but we want to point out you're an anomaly.
I found that out. I didn't know.
To how most of these shows take off and run, which is my buddy and I are going to do it. Or it's our club is going to do something, or we hate that other show, let's do it better. So the fact that 1, you had a business plan, 2, you tried to do the impossible, which we've all done, and explain to a property or city what a nerd convention was, your experience. And of course they never get, what they're saying. But 3, the fact that you did it correctly and now you're still here is just absolutely amazing in my eyes. So I'm just going to give you kudos for that.
When we did JCon, it was 5 guys put all on their credit card, and we didn't incorporate until year 5.
Yeah.
If the first year had gone belly up, I would have been declaring bankruptcy. So, that was 2000. Things have changed quite a bit since then,
Yeah.
We didn't have cell phones back then, in the before time, in the long, long ago.
Oh, we did. They were they were Nokias, and they lasted a week, but you couldn't send messages. We still had to carry those big brick radios on our hips with
the brick radios.
Oh, the ones that got hot when you called long distance.
Yeah.
I remember those.
That didn't charge fast enough. You talk. The charger wouldn't charge it fast enough. It was bad. Oh, I feel old.
Oh man. Yes. So from the structural standpoint, we went in blind, and I never knew what was behind the curtain. Now, to be fair, I had maybe 15 years of events production and promotion and management experience, but I knew that this would be the most complicated and multifaceted event that I would have ever worked in. I've done fashion shows, sporting events, concerts, the whole 9. But when you're talking about a con, you can have like 18 different separate events happening within the umbrella of one convention. And how to do that and do it right and not retread anybody else's mistakes. You know what it is? I did the Bob Rumsfeld. I knew that there was the known unknowns and the unknown unknowns. And I walked in knowing that there was a lot of stuff I didn't know that I didn't know that I didn't know.
Right, exactly.
And I just was like, okay, if I can just get a vector of where the bumpers are on here, then we can start moving forward. And so structurally, for me, I wanted the con to be on par and be as fun and be as energetic as the cons I love to go to. You know, I was going to MomoCon and Dragon Con and MagFest and KatsuCon, and you know, they were doing the all night parties and they were having dozens of panels and the cosplayers and you know, the hype guests and everything. And I said, I want to start at that scale. Doesn't have to be that size, but you know, just kind of have that framework. And I knew that that was going to be more than, you know, hey, let me just call everybody I know. We meet at the Holiday Inn Day Room, and you know, we kind of build outward from there. And so we kind of went in with like a real serious focus and building.
Well, let me jump in and ask you a question here then. So, you know, my first convention was Ken had his name. Mine was Trek Fest, which was in West Palm Beach, and I was, you know, I wasn't even old enough to drive. I was sitting in the passenger seat of a Trans Am. Driving with an older friend of mine. When you started conceptualizing Blerdcon and you said you liked the culture, everything else, is there one con in particular that you looked at and you went, okay, this is the model I want to do, but apply it to you know, a cross section of you know, a niche within a niche culture? Was there one con that stuck out the most?
I was actually standing, if you've been to MomoCon and the World Congress Center and the way their layout is, there's three tiers. You have the main tier when you walk in, and then you can look down on the masses as they go into the third tier down, which is where a lot of the stuff is. And that's where like all the crowd is. I was literally standing on the railing looking down when the term Blerdcon came to my head. And that's where it kind of just popped into my head. And I was just, like I said, I was looking at the structure of it. You know, I said, look over here. Okay, there's panel rooms and there's different subject matter and there's guests and there's, you know, everything from workshops to, you know, self-help to, you know, your favorite voice actor. Then there's video games, there's indie video games, there's Japanese video games, there's, you know, there's an anime screening section over here. You know, I was kind of like, I love all of it. And I was like, how could, I mean, and this is always the question with a niche market, right? And you say to yourself, how do you take that which is universally participated in by Black people, white people, and everyone else?
Oh no!
Hilton no, aliens may have grabbed. Hilton.
Wait, we get wait. See the stall until he comes back.
Everyone can enjoy.
You
know what I mean? You really,
Hilton, you got to back up 30 seconds because you just froze and then showed up out of nowhere with literally you started explaining, you froze and then came back with, and you know what I mean?
Comcast.
Hey, we might need them as a sponsor. Watch it.
So basically what I said was, you know, they had all of these different facets, and how do you take the Black nerd experience and put that top spin on the ball so that, you know, it stays a nerd convention but with a Black nerd flair? And what is that? Because it hasn't really been hard defined. It hasn't been written that these are the things that you might do to kind of put that type of a tweak on a lot of what is. Now, obviously, you know, the easiest and lowest hanging fruit is to feature lots and lots of Black cosplay. But, you know, that will only go so far. You know, it's like, okay, you got to come down to the music with the DJs, and it's got to come down. You know, the if you're going to have food trucks, you know, hey, do you have like soul food trucks? Do you have Jamaican food trucks? You know, how do you kind of bring that energy in? And, you know, with the first year coming in, we weren't really sure what it was going to do. Now, here's the thing. We had a marketer's wet dream. Okay. Marketers love when you look at a brand and people project onto your brand, be it Pepsi or Coke or whatever. And they project onto it all of their highest ideals and their greatest aspirations. We had that, but that means that the bar was set higher to meet expectations because everyone was going to be coming in with a slightly different take on what the ideal Black nerd convention was going to be. So we threw the kitchen sink at the con. Like we just tried to do everything in year one to see what stuck. And that was tough. That took a lot. We did over 125 panels in our first year, which that was.
Okay, so you did 125 panels. How many attendees did you have? And of course, the big question in the convention is turnstile numbers, unique noses. That.
And real quick,
stuff.
Hilton, your mic keeps brushing up against your neck piece. If there's some way you can move
okay,
it.
I can move it. All right, watch this.
Perfect.
Hold on, I'm gonna go silent for like.
Do.
Oh, look at him!
There
He's
you
rewiring
go.
himself.
So I want to know what the hell that thing is around his neck.
It's like I'm on the news. It's like I've done this before. I'm that guy at the crime.
Hello, officer. Got a story to tell.
You went there.
Oh, I love talking. Oh man, that guy ran down the corner. You would have never believed.
Okay.
So
Say
it's
something
too
real quick.
loud.
Yeah, you sound a little blown out there.
So
I remember how we had you change your mic level before the show. Now we moved your mic, so now we got to change your mic level again.
That was like, you know what? I'm gonna fix it. Watch this.
Fix it on the fly.
Better?
Yeah. Welcome to the first show, folks, where we fix things.
Better, Danielle?
Let's see.
Try to figure out how much of my 3D printing rig is on camera.
Yeah. Okay.
I think it's because you have it inside there. It sounds like it's in a tunnel.
Inside the mask now. That's the fun part.
Yeah, see if you still pull it out and like hang it right at the edge.
No, he's good. He's good.
Perfect.
He's good? Okay.
Yeah,
cool. Hey, if everybody can hear it.
Long as it's not bumping, too loud.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's much, yeah.
So, where was
So we're talking, you had 125?
Oh, yes. So
I'm going to jump before his 125 panels. How many programming rooms?
Oh, 8. So
okay.
Still,
that's a lot for a first year show.
Good, yeah. That's a good. I mean, it's a good number.
Like I said, it's like, whoa. All right, let's get these people moving. Get out of here. All right, people, we got to go. So what happened is that we, I'm talking to experienced con runners from all of the oldest and most veteran cons, and they're like, okay, look, Hilton, plan for 600 people. If you get 600 people, you go budget for 600, plan for 600. Any successful con, from Otakon to Anime Expo, your first con, you get your 600. And we went into the con day, or it was the first time ever doing it, went into the con day one with 625 badges sold. And so we were like, great, wonderful. This is great. We've hit that mark. This is respectable. We now have a successful first year, and people will be able to say we can
625 pre-sales.
Pre-sale, exactly.
So,
but we didn't know about door sales.
1,800. Is that what came in?
That's
3 to 1. 3 to 1. It's always 3 to 1.
Yeah. But we only had 1,000 badges. Fun story. So
been there. So been there.
we did not have the cojones to go and buy like 2,000 badges. I'm like, come on, they cost like 50 cents a piece. It's a big investment.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Collectible and not like some piece of paper that rots and falls off. People collect them. So we really did want the badges to be nice. So we did spend a little bit of money on it. So we got 1,000. And, the line is running. They're like, Hilton, what? I was like, we're out of badges. Now I'm mad because I think somebody stole or lost the box of badges. And I'm going, you freaking the. And we ended up having to run down to the Target, and not Target, but Staples to get wristbands and all that stuff. High class problems, absolutely.
Oh no!
First world problem.
You had it the first year, but historically, because we've designed and run like 5-7 different incarnations of shows. Every show always has what we call the bump year,
right?
And the bump year is, okay, this is my growth track. This I know what to project for. I bought this many, and then you show up, and suddenly you're like, oh. I need more. And in the old days, we haven't had to deal with this in a while, I'll be honest with you, but all I remember is going similar. We went to Staples, buying a laminating machine, and then just printing out and cutting these things and like just take them to registration and printing these suckers out.
The first J-Con, we laminate them on demand. We were printing them with their names and laminating on demand. And
the old school laminators.
Yeah, and we were only expecting 250 people, and 500 show up. And we're cash control. Had no idea what we were going to do with all the money. It's
Didn't
like it's
think about a cash box above like $100 of ones and fives. We're like, oh, that should be fine. You know, we were thinking 100, 200 tops are going to come after. You know, that we don't have to go to Bank of America. We're going to bug those people.
Oh no, but Hilton, just to throw the age card out here, when we were dealing with these problems back in the before time, ATMs wouldn't be able to receive cash. You couldn't put cash into an ATM. We take it out, and banks weren't open Saturdays or Sundays.
Right. Oh,
so you can't do like,
and we were on a
too much
university
cash on Saturday. Get rid of it Saturday.
So we were on a university. So we were the university credit union, and so they didn't open up until Tuesday, and we didn't know how to handle cash control. So we were passing big wads of ones in a ROM 1/2 VHS tape because that was the only thing that we had. The case to we're like, where are we going to
do? In the clamshell and run.
And it was we were passing off the videotape box because no one knew what to do with it. I'm in the night deposit shoving envelopes full of ones in the night deposit slot, hoping that somebody's going to, because I wasn't going to, what was I going to do? Throw a bunch of, you would have thought I was a stripper. With the number of singles
like you're on the strip club.
Yeah.
This new strip club down the street, is that Jim, the guy that runs it? Look at all those he's running there.
But there was, again, those unknowns that you don't know.
You don't know.
It's like,
you don't know.
We were the second anime convention in Orlando, and we weren't speaking to the first anime convention. So we had no idea what their problems were. And, cash control was the first big one, badges, con guides. We were only scaling to triple digits. And you don't learn that 3-to-1 ratio until maybe year 2 or 3, because you think, oh, it's a fluke. No one thought they were coming. But I mean, Tom, we were doing it all the way through to Florida Anime Experience. We were still running a 2-to-1, if not 3-to-1 ratio on pre-sales to the door.
Because we saw a shift in the age of internet sales became more prevalent. Because again, going back to old people time, JCon, the early days of JCon, registration was send your check in the mail with a form.
And we deposit the checks.
Wow.
You deposit the checks.
Does anyone under the age of 30 even know how to fill out a paper check? Anyone?
Yeah. Do you remember? So you remember when we met at Project Anime? The reason Eventbrite was there was because pre-existing that, we had a relationship with Eventbrite because they were just like, we're going back to like mid 2000s, early 2000s, when they were launching. We were like, hey, we can figure out how to make this work for our convention. But we were an anomaly. We weren't their market, which is when I got them involved with Project Anime going, hey, I know you're talking to like 5 of us, but there's 500. But prior to that, people would send cash in the mail. You'd get an envelope with like $40 cash and a piece of paper filled out. And that was your registration form.
And we allowed group rates because, we can Atlanta group rates. So if your club got together, you end up getting a 20% discount. So we would get a big wad of cash with one form with everybody's name on it. We didn't start taking credit cards until 2005.
Oof.
We were full
people
cash
would
operation.
mail wads of cash in the U.S. mail.
Yeah.
Wads of cash.
Wads. I was just like, what
oh my gosh.
It's crazy. It's Wild West. It was truly the Wild West.
I can only imagine because, the thing about and I always start and finish with this when I call it the community. And I think it's different from, there's a lot of businesses and conferences or whatever you want to, format that don't deal with their base as a community.
Right.
It's a market.
Right.
And this isn't a market. It's a community. It's a network of people with a shared and common experience, even though they're different region, age, all this stuff. We all come in and we're experiencing the same convention. And it's so funny because, you see the same enthusiasm on the faces of attendees if you're at a well-run and well-heeled small convention or large convention. And that's you don't see that anywhere else, in any other type of dynamic, not concerts, not amusement parks.
No.
This is like, where the community comes together. And yes, there's anime, and yes, there's video games and cosplay and all this stuff, but underlying all of that is that the community wants to be together. And these are, in part, vehicles by which to bring the community together to see and talk and connect with one another in times that they don't do because most of us are muggles in our day job. Not Tom. He's doing this full time now. But
Yes,
most of us got to put our muggle suits on and go to
Right.
work. And someone says, you hear an anime phrase, 2 cubicles down, you kind of do the meerkat thing where you pop your head up and go, like, did I just hear? Was that Cowboy Bebop?
Hilton, have you learned TikTok yet? Are you on TikTok?
No, I've seen it, but I haven't.
Okay, there's a popular TikTok of it's 2 women and it's always 2 girls that do the thing next to it. And they go, "I like your dress. Oh, I like your dress too." It's like, are you gay? Yeah, I'm gay. And that's kind of the same. Like whenever, if you ever find this video and anybody watching knows what I'm talking about, it's a popular trend. It's the same thing. It's when you're sitting, in an office, and it happens to me, when I'm around town, like I'm wearing, my all might shirt or something like that, and you'll have the, oh hey, that's my hair. It's like, oh, are you? Yeah, I'm an anime fan. Oh, you are too. And then it is, and I think you hit the word on the head. It's community, and the best, you got me thinking about the analogy to it of, you're right. I'll go to a concert, like, I'll go see like Guns N' Roses, but it's not like when you get to the concert, everybody's like, well, here's all the Slash fans are hanging out all together and all the Axl Rose fans right now. Convention is its own beast in the fact of, hey, you know what? Are you furries? They're all hanging in that corner. Okay, cool. Well, you like your video games? Cool. There's that, and they do. It's like a congregation within a congregation, which is why I think your convention is so fascinating, because it's a niche within a niche, and then another niche.
Right,
so
right.
Michael B. Jordan is a huge anime Naruto fan, and there's a huge Black community following for shows like Dragon Ball, stuff like that, and we see it at our shows. We're not specific to anything, but it's exciting for me. We're in Jacksonville for one of the shows we own, unlike Portland. So we have a show in Portland, show in Jacksonville. Portland, all the white people you can think of. Jacksonville, you have a lot more diversity, and it's amazing when you see everybody show up, and you all, I guess the best term is, you all find each other, if that makes sense. And so in your experience of doing it with Blerdcon, I mean, and you said, now you started as Black nerd, but you said it also blends into other just minorities within the culture. Is that right?
Yes. So it's funny because we have like these in-house conversations in the Black community around issues of race, believe it or not, because if you are half Black and half Asian, there's a whole other cultural experience happening in your household, including the Black experience. And if you're mixed white with Black, or if you're mixed Portuguese with Black, or whatever, and then there's the disability question. If you're a Black person who is a nerd, who is wheelchair bound, you have these commonalities with the Black nerd experience, but you're also have this entire world of experience in navigating the world as a person, managing life as a disabled person. And then there's generational. I always felt like, we're joking about being, older and stuff in here, but there's a nerd population in their 70s. Now they may not be out in force, at cons, but you see them, they really do enjoy the space. And one of the things that we tried to do is say, okay, listen, I am me, your con chair, a Black nerd. I'm also a veteran and all this other stuff. So there's certain things that I can talk to, but I can't talk to the Afro-Latina experience. So I'm not going to try and put together any programming that, from my perspective, is going to be genuine and sincere.
Right.
I'm going to find another, either there's a convention for that, or there's a club, an organization, and I'm going to say, hey, listen, I'm going to give you this block of programming or presence and have you speak to that. LGBT experience, I don't have that. I can't speak to that. So we find an organization and say, hey, come on in here. We'll give you 10 panel slots. You can talk about all the stuff that is relevant in the nerd space for the LGBT community. And so when the person walks in, because we don't have this monolithic Black nerd experience either, where regionally, if I was in Harlem, I'll give you an example. I was in Harlem on a panel for con runners, and I had to remind the audience that growing up in New York, you don't feel any absence or isolation for being black or brown, because you can find your people anywhere you want. If you can walk, there's 17 blocks of Harlem where you don't have to see anybody but black people, black owned businesses and black owned comic book shops and all that. Now, the black nerd who's from Ames, Iowa, their experience with the black nerd experience is completely different.
Right.
And yet you guys are going to be in the same building. So how do we cater an experience that's going to be stimulating for people who are more comfortable incorporating their ethnic identity with their nerdness and their fandom, with someone who maybe has never seen more than 5 black cosplayers in a room? And you see them when they walk in, like, I've never seen, like, oh my God, there's so many people. And then, a guy struts by and who's from like Queens, and he's like, oh yeah, look at this, it's pretty cool. All right, whatever. And so you have to kind of ride that middle ground so that it's stimulating and it's fun. And that's the next thing. No matter what you do with your niche, no matter what kind of messaging that you're putting forward or what your mission is, at the end of the day, your con has to be fun.
What?
You can't come to my con feeling like you've been assigned a book report. And
I was gonna say, what? I can't go to be preached to the whole time. And
no, you really have to have fun. And the real key is that, and I'll tell you this because Tom and I've had this conversation. I think there were a lot of, because we have some experienced people from the con world who are white and other races who have helped us, who sit on committees, who help with our vendor hall, so we got volunteers of every race and stuff. But I feel like there were a lot of people who were interested in what this experiment could do. And how can you create a black nerd experience as an entire con or even within a larger con, without alienating other members of the community?
Yeah.
And what we discovered is that, when people come in and if it's fun, 2, if people understand what they're walking into, there is a certain humility that somebody who maybe doesn't know anything. I've had parents who have adopted black kids come in and say, look, we're here because we want him to see more people like him, because he's not necessarily going to see it in his home because that's not who we are. Or, people who are coming from, other parts of the country who've never seen like a con like this. So we just have that responsibility to make it fun, make it open, educational, and I guess, I hate the word, but nutritious. I don't know if that's the word. You walk out knowing more than you.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Well, I think we've seen, and me personally, I mean, I'm about as, 50% of my upbringing was, my family is from the South. You know what I mean? And they're South white yeehaw. And the other half of me is first generation American. I'm Polish immigrant. And so my exposure to anything in that culture is limited. And I've known that, growing up. What I've seen a lot of trends of, and, I think Blerdcon was kind of an early jump into this, is especially in fandom, you're starting to see where pop culture is creating more inclusion to be passively entertaining. Did you get a chance to watch a show on Netflix called Space Force?
Yes.
Okay. So there's a scene in Space Force where there's an Asian character. It's a guy is driving a black woman somewhere, and they're in the van, and he starts effing with her by joking about, so Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood is the sequel to Full Metal Alchemist, and she's getting all pissed at it. And he's like, oh, I don't understand. And they're joking. But there's a stat that came up with that, and I forget the term that he used, of the rarest coupling is an Asian man and a black woman. And I started thinking of like, I have a pretty decently diverse group of friends. I'm like, do I have any Asian guy friends that are dating Asian or, black women? And it's just something you never think of till Sponsor Four. So that's the funny aspect of it's a funny joke, but it's also, that's an anomaly. And then the big one for me, and I've had conversations with, black celebrities and friends, some of my friends, I had zero knowledge about the events when I was watching Watchmen on HBO.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I'm like, in Tulsa, wow. I was like, oh, this is, because my knowledge of Watchmen is, it's fictional alternate universe Earth. Oh, this has got to be some fictional alternate universe story. And then I started looking online. I'm like, oh shit, this is real. And so I think we're seeing more of, and again, Blerdcon's 5 years now. I've seen just, you're seeing BLM come since then. But even prior to that, I think in the past 5 years, you've seen kind of an evolution of, hey, representation is important. You've gotten to see it. We've, with Black Panther, things like that. And the more it happens, as just a person watching, from the sidelines, I'm getting more diverse entertainment. I didn't know about the Tulsa thing in Watchmen, but it made that much more tragic.
On what Tom's got. So we've got Watchmen. Now we've got Lovecraft Country, which excellent. How is that affecting the whole Blerd community? I mean, how are you going to start incorporating stuff like this? Because I know Watchmen was at the tail end just before everything went to hell in a handbasket in the country.
Yeah.
How do you plan on integrating stuff like that into the piece? Because now it's before, maybe you're having culture bending or that, but now you've got Black focused, excellent nerd style entertainment out there. I mean, my wife and I were completely glued to Watchmen the entire time. And now we're starting to watch Lovecraft Country. We're huge Lovecraft fans here in the house. So, how are you going to integrate that kind of stuff into your show?
Excellent question. And I got to tell you, just as you're piggybacking off what Tom was talking about, there's two things happening. There's this rapid expansion of the nerd population because of the mainstreaming with movies and television and fashion and everything. 11 years of Marvel movies, is starting to this generation of people who, when you had to hold a comic book of the Infinity Wars and go, and then this stone, you're not going to get it. But now so that's, the expansion of that world is also an expansion of the Blerd world. And you're seeing, well, let me back up even further. So Luke Cage and Black Panther, I forgot about Luke Cage, were watermarks because they made a lot of money. One shut down Netflix, right? And one made $1 billion in a month at a time where, even directors, forget about what people thought audiences would do, but people within the industry did not see the industry as being open and accepting to shows like Watchmen.
Wait, pause for 1 second. Nerd moment. You guys know about what happens in October with Netflix? It's been 2 years since the cancellation of Luke Cage and all of those shows, and all the rights are now reverting back to Disney. So
right. So I'm looking at my Disney Plus, like
my wife has the hoodie signed by the actor. Like, we are that big a fan. So hoping they make their way back. But please continue.
Yes, they are consolidating. I feel like you're right, and that will happen. But I think that on one hand, it's a business thing. I think that the authenticity and the diversity and inclusion, both in front of the camera and behind the camera, is a formula that has been proven to have an audience. So from a purely business perspective, it is now bankable to say, let's get a Black director and a Black AD and the Black producer, Black writer to tell an authentic Black story, even within the context of an alternate universe like Watchmen, or a alternate offshoot story being told of, H.P. Lovecraft Country, the book Lovecraft Country, the TV show. You're starting to see more of that. Now, what has happened since January, and this has been just pulling my wig back for about 6 months. One, everyone had to come home, and everybody is in front of their screens. And in that environment, George Floyd happened. If it had been November of 2019, not saying it wouldn't have happened, or the revolution and all this stuff wouldn't have happened, but it takes a while for people to catch on and for things to go viral. And because we were all locked down and we were all at home and we were all looking at our screens when that happened, the flashpoint of it was amplified tenfold. So you have a crisis that has brought us all into this world where technology has become our window to the world. Something horrible happens that brings us out, and in worldwide demonstrations over George Floyd, no one's ever seen anything like this. And now you have, and now to be fair, Lovecraft Country was in production for a year and a half,
Right,
so
yeah,
they know that the timing would be what it is. But they do recognize the market. So Blerdcon is getting phone calls from studios. We were one of the promotional sponsors. This whole part of my display back here is Lovecraft Country. This is, we did. If you follow our social media, we were right on the cusp and are still doing promo work for HBO and Lovecraft Country, because it is being recognized that the Black nerd population, even within the Black community, needs more direct marketing, more nurturing, and will come out and underpin and feed the discussion and the ongoing energy in between episodes for shows like Lovecraft Country.
Now, with Fandom announcing the relaunch of Milestone.
Oh yeah.
I worked in a comic book store when Milestone first launched. I remember Hardware. I remember Static Shock. I remember Icon. I remember reading those stories. A huge J. Robinson fan. Do you think all that drove the relaunch?
Oh yes.
Of Milestone.
Absolutely. I believe, just because of the people that I've met at Warner Brothers, and we were part of the Fandom team as well.
Mm-hmm.
A whole box of Fandom stuff there. I can't fit this hat, so I put it on a smaller
head. You got a big head like me.
I got a big head.
Big melon.
Yeah, I got a big melon here, man. A lot of water up there. But the people that I've met and worked with at Warner Brothers, it just seems so sincere in their desire to get it right.
Mm-hmm.
And again,
I felt that.
It absolutely, you can say this is a business decision, because they know if they get it right, they are going to solidify a fan base and all the stuff that every label and distributor and enterprise wants to do. But they're putting Black women in charge of outreach. They're putting people of color in key positions to put the programming and stuff together. And I think they looked at Milestone and said, well, they're all right here. They used to work here.
We own all this stuff. Why are we not leveraging it? Yeah.
Why reinvent the wheel? Let's just call them back and have them reactivate and reintroduce some of their characters to a generation that wasn't part of the Milestone revolution. Now, remember, there was a documentary about 3 years ago that came out. I don't know if it was Discovery or History Channel, but it was just riveting, for even someone like me who came through the Milestone era.
Right.
But all I saw was the comic books.
Right.
So what do I know, right? But to see what was going on behind the scenes and the stories and the path, and it's like the what is that? The song remains the same. You're like seeing this behind the scenes thing. I think they are seeing that the market is there, and the vehicles that currently exist are an easier way for them to go about in the con space being canceled.
Right.
You think about it, HBO, Warner Brothers, they're used to doing red carpet stuff, Hall H. And when all that went away, they're saying, okay, who's in the nerd space, since we can't physically access it? And they looked at us at Blerdcon and said, oh, look how many followers you have on your social media. Look at your list of attendees over the 4 years and all this stuff. And they said, can we, normally they would have been calling us to have guests come to the con, but they had to do so virtually as opposed to physically.
Now, if you were to look at all the figures in Black nerd, the Black nerd culture, who would you put forward as the primary, this is the alpha of the Black nerd community? One who speaks, yeah.
I don't know if we have a spokesperson. Like we have, like you might say, a favorite actor. I think Jonathan, what's his name? Majors, from Lovecraft Country and the Five Bloods,
right?
Who just got cast as Kang the Conqueror.
Wow.
In the Ant-Man 3 movie. Yeah, I'm like,
oh, there you go.
Oh,
Kang the Conqueror. Yeah, well, there's a good phrase. There's a good phrase.
Okay, that's the best.
We get the screenshot.
Yeah,
we get the screenshot on that one.
Wait till he comes back.
Yeah, we get Danielle to give you the voice.
Did everybody come back, or did I freeze, or did y'all freeze?
You froze, but this is how you froze.
Yeah, it's a great shot. Yeah, that one's for the feed. That one's for that.
Oh,
one's
yeah.
Put that one on the poster.
Well, you're bringing up actors. My go-to is always, and I've already brought him up, Michael B. Jordan, because Naruto fan, openly big about it. Black Panther. So the guy's way into the nerd sector as far as I can. And I mean, and though he, nobody ever wants to admit it, Fantastic Four.
True.
Yeah.
His
Some of us try to forget about that, Tom.
Yes, including the people in the movie.
It never happened.
It never happened. We don't speak that name here. So actors, right? Like Michael B. Jordan, the late great Chadwick Boseman, playing the Black Panther.
I mean, we brought Phil Lamar in at JCon 2005. We brought him in
People
as
sleep
Green
on
Lantern.
him. People really sleep on Phil Lamar.
And I didn't realize when he was doing he's pulling the comic books out of his bag. He's talking about what he's reading, what he's doing, and all the other stuff. And I was like, and then I completely forgot that he was the voice of Static Shock at the time as well. So I mean, this was JCon 2005. We're pulling whoever we can. And, that was one of those Hail Mary passes. Can we get Phil Lamar in? And he was excellent guest. And, he was really engaging. He was always there and always talking to everybody. And watching Mark Bernardin interview him at the Milestone panel, like he was the voice of one of the characters. Is he really going to be part of Milestone going forward? Who knows? But he's Phil Lamar, and he's there, and he's engaging, and he's talking to everybody. He knows everything, and he knows the industry. He knows what's going on, and he was there as part of that whole piece. And if it's going to go forward, odds are he's going to be there too.
Oh yeah, he's going to be a big part of it. Cree Summer is another voice actor that has done so much work. And I know we're short on time, but I want to make sure that I got this out, because we talk about the mission. It's not just about having these black and brown faces being represented and being actualized and stuff in the nerd space.
Right.
What I'm hoping that Blerdcon is able to do in the long run is to help diversify the entire geek space. So, for instance, Blerdcon is in of itself its own world. It's its own personality. Everyone who's attended says it's already got its own flavor, and it's a niche that people are coming to love. And that's what happens after 4 or 5 years if you're doing something that people like. And God bless us if that's something that we've been able to accomplish, me and my team. But what I would like to do is be able to provide information, resources to non-niche conventions who say, hey, maybe our convention is not located in an area that lends itself to representation of subject matter and of cosplay guests and stuff. How do you recommend, or do you recommend individuals that maybe can come and be guests or be vendors or be guest artists or do panels? And I'm like, oh yeah, I did this for 2 cons. I said, look, I'm going to send you my entire, panel submission list and let you pick the ones you want. And I guarantee you, if they're local, they will want to present at your convention.
Yeah.
Everybody loves speaking to the choir. Everyone loves preaching to the choir, right? But it's even more valuable when you're able to share to an audience that is nascent to the subject matter. And so if we can provide resources that diversify and create inclusion throughout the geek space and help further the discussion as the world starts to become more diverse, more inclusive, and more churned with all the things that are going on both in the world and in the art form, then I feel like our relevance will lend itself to the relevance of the con running community, which will then trickle down to the con community. And that cycle, I feel like we have to be a part of the con ecosystem in order to persist.
Well, Hilton, I'm somebody watching this podcast right now, and I own a convention, which we know most of our demographic hopefully are the con runners. And I want to do that. How does somebody get in touch with you?
You can email me at admin@blerdcon.com, or you can hit me on social media. If you message the Facebook page, 9 times out of 10, I'll be the first one to see it. I'm pretty freakish with my social media. I kind of like, whoa, somebody hit me up.
You have to be with conventions at this.
Yeah, people are like, oh my God, I got you right away. Like, yeah, like I don't have a secretary. I'm the guy on the other end of the line most of the time. So yeah, you can message me through social media. but like I said, if you wanted to reach me that way, and hey, if you guys know Tom called and texted me when I was 3 minutes late. I'm telling you, he knows how to find me. As a matter of fact, I'm going to check my house. He might be in my home right now because that picture on the upper left looks familiar. He's everywhere. So yes, I am in the community. I'm easy to find, and I'm really open to helping out and lending resources to anyone who needs it.
Okay. So we're at the 5-minute mark. So, just real quick. So 5 years of Blerdcon. Tell us about the next Blerdcon that's physically happening. Dates, location, shameless plug stuff.
This is Blerdcon 2021. The theme for the year will be chocolate. Be on the 16th through the 18th. Oh, okay. Well, it is July 16th through 18th, 2021, at the Hyatt Crystal City in Arlington, Virginia, which is like right next to the airport. So if you're flying in, you can throw a rock from the runway to the Hyatt. We're going to be in multiple buildings. We're on the Dragon Con plan. We're going to be in multiple buildings as we grow and not leave the region. We're partnered with Arlington and Crystal City to be there in the long term. We're going to be doing outside events. It's going to be really cool. A lot of our guests have already been booked, and they have recycled their booking for next year this time.
Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah, it was really cool. And it's 24 hours. It's 3 days. We don't shut down. Okay, unless there's a power outage, a meteor hits the Capitol, the lights will not
do not curse yourself. This is 2020.
Yeah, we're watching.
Do not bring
no, that's right. That's right.
I have been at a convention, a large convention, staying at a hotel when there was a water main break and there was no water in a hotel, and they had to help. So when you make a joke like that, we
won't tempt fate. We will not
tempt fate. I've seen the horrible happen. Yes,
not this year,
especially 2020.
and I tell people to come out to the con because even because I get this question too, like, well, I'm white or I'm Asian or I'm not Black. Can I come? Absolutely. This is like if you went to the Museum of African American History, what is the subject and what is being served up is Black nerd culture. The people who want to consume that, the people who want to experience that can be from anywhere. So, definitely come out, definitely have a good time. And that's what we've done. We've managed to put together something that is a lot of fun. There's a lot of music, a lot of food. We really, really do it up. Check out our videos on YouTube. Just put Blerdcon into YouTube and you'll see all the CMVs and the MVs and all that stuff is really, really, really well represented on YouTube as well.
And you guys are on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. It's blerdcon.com.
Blerdcon DC and Twitter, Blerdcon on Instagram, Blerdcon, the group and the page on Facebook, and then blerdcon.com on the World Wide Web.
So you get franchise Blerdcon West, Blerdcon North, Blerdcon Canada.
I'm trying to franchise Blerdcon singular. But it's funny. We were actually going to do some micro pop-ups. That was kind of the plan with some of our partner organizations, and that is one of the things that I have already written up that we can probably do if we partner with other cons. Like, hey, we could throw together a Blerd party for you, and come on out and turn up and have a good time. So
Tom's proven that the convention within the convention is a workable model. So
yes, we've done that before. Informa bought one of mine and we integrated it into theirs and run it every year with them now in Orlando.
And let the people know, man, if you're not a con runner and you're watching this, you may not even know, but the con running family is a family. This is an entire subculture of people who just love running cons and creating the con experience, and discovering the con family was probably the greatest thing that happened to Blerdcon in the entire run of the convention world, because we didn't know it existed. And then we were like, oh my God, there's like a whole village of people who just want to see cons succeed, because a con that is unsuccessful somewhere hurts cons everywhere. We want all of the success. We want all the genres to win. We want all the con experiences to be positive. and all the cons to grow, because we think we got the win in hand. This is the coolest people are the nerds and the geeks and the otaku. So I mean, come on, you know.
And you've heard me use the term, Project Animes, and I beat the term to the ground. It is a fandom ecosystem, and we are an ecosystem, and it's all of us are healthy, or none of us are, and especially coming out of 2020 into 2021, that's part of the joy of getting to start this podcast. Is we need to start these conversations as we all come back with the world next year. But that's our show. So perfect. We made it a full hour. Please give yourselves a polite golf clap for everybody succeeding. The first episode of Convention Nerds. I want to say thank you, Ken, for getting the kid to bed by 8. And,
I got 5-year-old
this time. And, Hilton, thank you so much for coming on and talking. It was an amazing conversation.
Thanks for having me.
Again, folks, check out Blerdcon on social media, and get some Blerdcon at your own con. If you're a con promoter, contact Hilton, get in touch, because as a showrunner myself, we need more diversity at all of our shows, in my opinion. So perfect. That's it. Everybody pose as she does the closing credits. Ready? We're going to pose.